Gentlemen, I wanted to ask you about something that affects all of us today, and that is white papers.
White
Do you read a lot of white papers?
No, I don't, but I'm involved in a lot of white paper discussion. And I would just like to jump ahead and be like, if we could just banish the value of the white paper that it once had, and we once all believed that was good, is now so over. It is completely done. The white paper has been beat to death and really should be abolished. It should just be abolished, and no one should write a new white paper on any topic in favor of any other medium they can communicate. So,
But how do you really feel, Brandon?
we just have to get rid of them. We have to. We just have to get rid of them.
Oh man,
I can't take it anymore. But I don't know, Coté, were you going to say you love them and they're awesome?
I have a neutral position. You know, over the years I've worked on white papers before, and you know I work on them every now and then. I was doing some white paper work today. The problem is, as an analyst, I would often look at white papers, and so like I've actually consumed them and looked at them, because the alternative is usually either nothing, talking to someone, which is just like, that's unacceptable. I can't be talking to people, and or looking at like a blog page, right? And it is like, I don't know, there's something that's not filling the hole, and maybe a white paper is the wrong format for it. But oftentimes I would want to be sent the quasi-definitive position on something. You know what I mean? And you know, I see that white papers are valuable for that. But the main problem that I see with a lot of white papers, in the fields that we work in at least, is that by the time you've gone through the entire process of making them that pretty PDF, they're not really as useful as they were when you originally thought to write it, right? Like the knowledge kind of expires and isn't too good. Now, on the other hand, to close out my little monologue here, you could, as people often do, you could, for example, point to what's his name, John Lewis and Martin Fowler's piece on microservices as effectively a white paper that still is not invalid. You know, they could have published that as a PDF and it would have been as useful as published as a HTML web page.
And they could have collected leads on it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's the lead thing. That's a whole other conversation. Where do the leads go? How do we get the leads? But you know, it's just more of I find working on things like white papers, it's more of the structure and the process of it, which kind of affects the not to be all Marshall McLuhan about it, but like the medium that you do it in makes the message really weird and kind of screws it up to some extent. But also there's a lot of people who seem to like white papers, I guess.
Well, I think you have like lots of competing priorities around what they're used for, right? I think a white paper that's like provocatively written, that's taking a position on something that's maybe not widely known or widely accepted, I think that's great. It's just very, very few of them are doing that. Most white papers today follow a very typical format of, here's the problem with some statistics about why the problem is really bad. Followed
this is a good point.
A description of like, this is how you could solve this problem, but it's pretty generic because you're not really sure who's reading it, and if it's too detailed, people start editing it out.
Right.
Followed by at the very end like a high level diagram or solution of like what a product would do, but again, it's not at a level that sort of is really detailed, so you're not getting a lot for it. But again, there's always this assumption in the competing group that's writing it is like, well, let's keep it high level. Let's not get into too much detail. So it kind of leaves you underwhelmed. But someone that took a paper, and I don't even think it should be called a white paper. I think like a position paper, somebody that's just, I'm passionate about, and you kind of see this a little bit in open source, right? I mean, all those manifestos that came out a while back, right? Were very much, even if you didn't like them, they were provocatively written. They were written with passion. They were trying to convey a point of view that that ultimately I think has a lot of value, but it's just very, very few white papers. Do people have the time or the interest to write something like that? I mean, it's like books, right? We all probably could write a great book, but who has the time to do that other than Coté?
But you could write a white paper.
You could write a white paper.
I couldn't be bothered to write a book, but a white paper I could.
Well, I think I would love, I mean, obviously it's totally biased, but I think there's so many podcasts now where people do that. I think it's easier to do it. It's quicker to do it. People will convey their opinions and their, maybe it's not as structured, but it certainly is a place you can get a lot of that knowledge. I think, especially like on people taking strong positions and advocating new ideas. I think, podcasts in a lot of ways, like there's a whole ocean of that out there.
I mean,
what were you going to say, Matt? Right.
I mean, that's kind of how I absorb information is, I don't get it from just like a white paper or a single podcast or a blog. It's like I kind of got to stew in it for a while and get it from a lot of different sources. And podcasts help because you just kind of play them in the background and learn by osmosis. And, I got the gist of it. And like a book, I read some books, but a lot of, especially like business books, you're kind of like, man, I don't need to read the whole thing. Give me the summary, or let me listen to like 2 or 3 interviews where the author talks about their book, and I think I get the gist of it. And by way of osmosis, I pick it up, or as we talked about before, that business books for dummies, condensed form thing you could get. That
the Blinkist.
Yeah, the Blinkist. That would work.
Yeah, I think the sort of like more tediousness in my life buzzsaw that I encounter in my present circumstances is we at Pivotal don't really like write a lot of white papers, but we do a lot of other stuff like conference talks, and man, we write in Twitter a lot. The day that you can like have Twitter be a substitute for white papers will rule the earth. But like, and then we do some podcasts here and there and blog posts, but it's still sort of not like completely the acceptable medium for everyone. Like I remember I was on just a rando call a while back, and the architecture type person said, "Can you send me all the white papers you have?" And I said, well, "What do you mean?" And he's like, all the white papers. And well, it's easy to make fun of that position. Like I can sympathize with this. Like this is kind of what I would do when I was an analyst. Is like, God forbid I had to talk to people to make that joke again. But like I would just go to a website and just download everything. So if you've ever seen someone named Johnny Legion in your Salesforce, that's me.
Is it Johnny Legion at mailinator.com?
No,
because that might have been me.
He's just lead gen at Coté.io. He's the janitor there. He's very interested in lots of topics. Anyways, so I would just go download all the white papers because I wanted like a directory full of the condensed stuff. Now the alternative would be like, I'm going to start with today's post in the blog and reverse chronologically read till I get to the end, which is like, remember that old commercial, honey, I reached the end of the internet. Right? Like that doesn't really work. Like, so you do need some kind of like bookended, here's the thing. But I think the issue is, again, with white papers, like they don't have this living sense to them. So it's like, it's frustrating in the sense of like, once you write a white paper, you'd like to keep updating it and people also don't put links in white papers. But I think what Fowler and those guys do is, now that I'm thinking about it, is actually pretty good. They sort of have like definitive URLs on things that they sort of add to, but
So what about, I mean, how would you contrast like the style of white papers versus like the analyst reports that like you were doing at 451 or?
Yeah. Also, can I parenthetically add that it's been a busy week in tech, so that's why we're talking about white paper. Anyways,
no. I can tie things back to this week in tech.
No. I think I like this topic. It's fantastic. So, well, at 451, I mean, it was a similar thing. So, in the analyst business, there were 2 things at 451 relevant to your question, Matt. One of them was the main thing output that 451 does is actually just highly opinionated tech news coverage. So every day, if you get their newsletter, there's like a 1,000 to 1,500 word piece covering some tech news event, and every now and then there's a thought piece in there, but it's not like a report as such, right? It's just like a very expert driven, smart newsletter about the tech world, which is great. So that kind of thing you expect to basically be a web page, right? Like it's like an article. Now there were reports that were generated, and those reports, they would vary from just ad hoc whatever the analyst wanted to write about that year, which was, as you can imagine, a favorite of the management, to more structured things like here's an overview of DevOps, or here's an overview of the enterprise storage space. And it was over some period of time, it was a snapshot of what was happening there. And it might be the initial snapshot, which would define what that thing is. So way back when they wrote a report on what DevOps was in 2009, and it was like, here's what DevOps is. And that was it.
All right, watch this. I'm going to tie it back to the news. You said that if you only had to work with Twitter, you'd be set.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter uncapped direct messages. So everybody who follows Pivotal can now receive 10,000 character direct messages.
Ooh,
Hold on. I'm going to have to quickly unfollow Pivotal. Let me just give me 1 minute here before we continue.
If you start getting 10,000 character direct messages from Pivotal, it's Coté's fault.
Well, actually, I heard Dick Costello, who's stepping down as Twitter CEO. Like, I think that was his plan. His plan was like, "Hey guys, let's just turn this into a white paper generator." And the board of directors is like, "You, my friend, are out. You're done." That was the last straw.
Yes.
You can first this Periscope and Vine, and now this white paper thing. That's not what we need.
I need to go register the Twitter handle Johnny Legion. Go get his white papers.
Well, because check this out. They unhooked the thing about direct messages can only go to people who follow you. So now you can send 10,000 characters to anybody on the internet unless they've gone through the hassle of finding that setting.
Turning it off.
So you could send white papers to everyone, Coté.
Yeah. You know, that does hit upon one piece of news. It is like, you know, Twitter is unfathomable. Like it's a strange service we all who would be listening to this depend on and like. But man, what a weird place. Good.
Don't you have a lot of sympathy though? Like if you were in charge of like the product strategy of Twitter, it's just like I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's just like because you can just see the meeting. We're like, I don't know. Let's just try this. Give them 10,000 characters. Well, let's see if we can become a messaging service. Yeah. And it's just like why not? Give it a shot. And you can just see the meeting where it's like, does anyone else have any ideas? Let's just do this.
Because they've got group direct messaging now too, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, but it's just so weird. It's like, is there a need? Like, do we need another messaging service? That's why I think it's like so crazy. It's like, okay, I mean, it's not bad, but it's like, wow, another messaging service. It's like, I don't know. Feels like that wasn't a big need for me today. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, our mutually favored sort of analyst du jour, Ben Thompson, he goes on and on about why he thinks, things could improve at Twitter. And, for a topic that I could not force myself to spend a lot of time thinking on, he has thought a lot on it. And I think he's got a lot of good analysis of how it's kind of like a screwed up place, right?
Well, we need to read that one. And then Chris Sacca, investor.
Everybody
talk about like the guy that wants to be VP of product. It's like, why don't you just call Chris up and be like, hey, get on in here, man. Just like you take it over.
Either Chris Sacca or Snoop Dogg, right? I mean, they all want a piece of that. Everybody wants to run Twitter.
Yeah, roll it up and smoke it. That's the next attempt. Throw some cans in a bag and just get all blotto as they.
I don't know. I think they should just sell that baby to Google and let it find a home
for sale?
there. I just think that's my prediction. Just let it go to Google, where it seems like it would fit a nice niche that Google can't get social, and it's kind of this confusing thing that tech people like. So give it to Google; they'll be a great steward of that service.
Or not.
This highlights another product management quarterbacking that was going on this week at that WWDC thing. I didn't really even watch that, but I listened to some podcasts, and apparently the end of it was some sort of disaster of like ambiguity. And it was funny to hear people, just like fretting about the product management. But it highlights something you were saying, Brandon. It's just like inside these large companies, not very thrilling to be working on product stuff. Like who knows how much of that hatching Twitter culture is left inside there. But like if it's anything like what it was in that book, it does not seem like a very helpful place to work. as far as getting like collaboration to figure things out and like actually just focusing on product, if you will. So I don't know. I mean, it seems like they've actually been releasing things recently. You can tell I cover it very closely, but man, it's hard to get a group of people like even at a tech company that's supposed to know what they're doing actually like produce software that's useful. And it's really easy to rest on your laurels, even if you're Twitter.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was about to make a joke about Slack, but then I realized like last night I was flying home from Cisco Live. And the guys sitting behind me were part of Cisco's collaboration software. And they were talking about Slack, about how they were going up against it in the marketplace. And I was just like, I didn't know Cisco had a product.
Hey, yeah.
But I mean, just that this tiny, I mean, relatively tiny new startup is, got this big enterprise app, scared and but then they're like, but we're going to tie it into the VoIP phones and it's going to, that's going to be our ace in the hole. And I was like, really? People use phones? But
yeah. To the point of needing another messaging application, Slack is yet another mystery of success in the sense of like, sure, looks great, but it is sort of why of all the pretty folk who showed up at the dance, why did this one get picked? Like, out of all the other ones, not that it doesn't deserve to or whatever, but it is, it has its rafter problems. Like I'm currently logged into like 3 different accounts and we can't merge this one like rogue Slack room into the official Slack room. And it's just like, argh. Basically we have enterprise software problems. But it is weird. And then at the end of the day, it's just like, chat.
What I like is you've got open source on one end.
I'm working really hard on that Slack sponsorship, by the
way. Well, we can go for HipChat. I know some of those guys. Yeah, we get them to sponsors. No, but like you've got your open source and your enterprise, and they both have the same problems. Where it's like they don't do everything that everybody wants, and surprisingly or not surprisingly, the stuff in the middle doesn't work either. So software's just a mess. It's been one of those weeks.
Mm-hmm. That's basically the summary of how I feel the week after coming back from a long vacation or a long time away, right? I'm just like, why do I do this? Oh, right. And then I get reminded at some point. But it's so speaking of that, you guys were both in San Diego this week, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's the weather like in San Diego this time of year?
I believe the low was 63 and the high was 71.
So we're talking flip-flops, shorts, a t-shirt, and a hoodie.
Yep.
I think jeans t-shirt myself. It wasn't so warm. I mean, definitely that afternoon, but it is just the perfect climate. You're like, wow, this is pretty perfect here. Like, I understand why everyone loves it.
Right. It's
nice.
little wonder that like Quest and ServiceNow came from that part of the country.
Yeah. It was nice. I unfortunately I was at not unfortunately I was at Cisco Live, but unfortunately I booked
Instead
my travel.
Of on the beach.
Yeah,
right.
Unfortunately I booked my travel a month before a conference where 24,000 people came. And so all the hotel options were gone, and then I went and hit up the old corporate travel search engine, and it said
not good.
Yeah, not good. And it said, so here's a nice hotel, and it's just 4 miles away. And I was like, all right, it looks good. The reviews were nice. It was on, it turns out it was 4 miles as the crow flies on the wrong side of the harbor. Oh. So I had to take a 20-minute cab ride every morning and every afternoon.
I'm going to the DevOps Days of Amsterdam, and I booked a hotel right across the harbor. We'll see how this pans out. It looked like it would be safe, but I think I'll be fine. But yeah, man, across the water, not good.
Well, I mean, I could see it. I could like the island that I was staying on. I was on Shelter Island in San Diego, which is a kind of little strip of land. It was like 200 feet across. And then I'd open the front door and there's a bunch of sailboats, and open the back door and there was like the convention center way over there.
You swim over there, Alcatraz style.
Yeah.
I must say I had the exact opposite experience as had to go up to La Jolla, which is a beautiful, beautiful area, up to Torrey Pines, very famous golf course area. And at this hotel, for whatever reason, first time I ever had this, like it was sort of like built into kind of a side of a hill, and my room was actually on the same floor as the actual meeting rooms and keynotes and stuff like that. So I could literally just walk out of the hallway and be there in like 20 seconds. It was I think maybe like half of a conference enjoyment is just not having to walk so far to get to it. And
Wow. So now you were at Cisco Live, Matt Ray.
Yeah.
But what were you at, Brandon?
I was at the Cloud Identity Summit that's hosted by Ping Identity, talking about all things
those
identity and security and the cloud and all that good stuff.
So how are those Ping guys doing? What are they up to?
They're doing well. I think actually. For this audience, there was a lot of Google was there talking a lot about the FIDO Alliance, which is a new like two-factor authentication that's coming out. And there's an OpenStack talk on by an IBM employee about identity in OpenStack, which was actually very well attended and was very interesting.
What do you got there? What a Keystone?
Keystone, there you go. Project Keystone. So went through that and it's the same story, but it's more like, to me, it's interesting as identity just grows closer and closer to security and the developers. As I often say, like, I wish the black t-shirt guys would show up, and we had them. We had a couple guys from Google talking about, here's how you can make authentication with Google services better. We had the OpenStack guys from IBM talking about, here's how you can do it correctly. Like, don't write them in a database, do it this way. And gave a very, simple examples that I think most anyone could follow. So, I don't know how long it is, but it was encouraging to see that group kind of get closer to identity and security, which I think is good.
Yeah, there was like this hopeful time of ushered in by that Dick Hart guy with the first 300-page slide presentation.
Yes, Skip. I think it was Skip at the time.
The Identity 2.0, which seemed to begat OpenID, which begat OAuth, and I think that's what happened.
Begat OAuth 2.
OAuth 2. And then it seemed like there was some cleaning up of standards going on there for a while. It was quite enjoyable. Do you think?
What do you guys think? Like SAML and OAuth? I was gonna say, is SAML and OAuth well adopted or well understood in the broad general cloud and developer community? It seems like it's closer than.
That's all I ever hear about when I hear about anything.
Yeah. That's the only stuff I ever hear, and I don't even know what it is.
And I think what's coming, and then I think people are getting more interested in two-factor authentication and how to do it right, and that's where I think Google's pushing a lot. You even saw Microsoft pushing a lot, and this whole FIDO Alliance, I think it's like Fast ID authentication or whatever. But so there's some encouraging things happening there.
Yeah, I'm sure this is one of those like be careful what you ask for, but like I don't mind the two-factor authentication thing. It's just like I wish you didn't have to do it so often. Like I'm always having to enter that damn thing. Like it must be the policy that the pivotal IT people have set, but like you can't just like stay logged in. You're always entering stuff.
Well, there was great discussion of that exact problem about. It's great if two-factor auth becomes more popular. We can maybe make that easier, but we've got to get away from constantly requiring the good people, like the users, to having to over and over authenticate, especially when they're going to do things that are very low risk. And at some point, maybe you got to start trusting that. And so there was a lot of discussion around that topic.
It's sort of like the culture of identity. That's fun. Culture talk.
That's right. It is. There is a heavy beat of culture inside of that.
So now, when you're at a show like this, are there a lot of like customers and end users? Like, how many people were there?
Well, this show was, I think there were probably like 800 people there. This show was kind of a meeting of the minds around the identity thought leaders, sometimes referred to as the identirati. So kind of the
sorry.
Try to think. No, I understand. I knew that was coming when I said it. So I set you up, Matt, right? But it would be like the who are the equivalent in the DevOps world, right? Like the guys that wrote that book. It's kind of that.
They were all on stage at Cisco Live. There was a session with Adrian Cocroft and Damon Edwards and Gene Kim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That kind of crew. So it's like take that DevOps crew and say whatever their, I don't even know what their nickname is, they have one, but then there's the equivalent kind of group in the identity world. And then, so it was a lot of those guys. I mean, some of it was very practical, and then there's always a lot of pontificating, right? And you're just like, sometimes you're in the keynote, you're like, this is just nuts. Like, this guy has just gone off the deep end, right? Like, he's discussing things that are just, I don't even know.
Is that like when there's like context aware situational things or something?
I don't know. It's just like, especially when they just like a metaphor that's just like about life. It just becomes like almost like an overall. And I've actually seen this in DevOps too, where someone just goes on like a philosophy rant, right, for like an hour, and you're like, I just don't even know what to think of it, right? And it's like, so there's some of that. But
imagine having to write a white paper about that.
Exactly,
Yes.
right? It's like some crazy point of view that, I don't know. It's got crazy metaphors in it, and so there's that. But it is interesting, right? Like it's always, I think it's interesting. Like this week was a really interesting just on IT, because you had the Gartner Security Show on the East Coast in DC, you had Cisco Live in San Diego, and then you had this identity conference out in La Jolla, and it's like, wait a minute, guys. I think we should all be meeting together, right? Like, it's like everyone's all these different places, and somehow it's like this is all related. But then, of course, everyone just gets in their own niche and gives these crazy keynotes, and hopefully some good comes of it.
So is Microsoft there with the big Active Directory booth?
They're there. They're always, yeah, Azure, Active Directory, and in many ways, it's like, the guy even made a joke about it, like, integrating with Active Directory and authenticating. He's like, oh, we made that a little bit too hard, right? Because that is the de facto thing that everyone must, at some point, especially if you're selling enterprise software, you will come up against Active Directory, and then you'll be like, oh, this is just an LDAP directory, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, no, it isn't. Oh, wait, it's a little different. Oh, wait, this is going to be hard. So in some ways, Microsoft, maybe to no fault of their own, it's burdened us all with this legacy thing that no one, not even Microsoft, can get away from it. So
AD integration is enterprise feature number 1.
it is. It really is. It's just like, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. First you need dashboards, right? And then you need AD integration, right? And it's just, and then again, like every startup bolting it on afterwards, it's just like, oh, here we go again. It's going to be kind of nasty. And
then how is Cisco Live? Like, what does one do at a Cisco conference? You like reconfigure routers or something? Did they explain what intercloud is?
There was something for everyone, Coté.
It was like a buffet for the IATI. Whatever you wanted to, what kind of IATI you are.
I mean, there was so much stuff going on that I decided not to go to any. I mean,
you were overwhelmed.
I was overwhelmed. I did. So I had some booth duty, and I gave a talk, and I did a V Brown Bag recording. So that was cool.
I got invited to give a brown bag next week somewhere, and they didn't call it a brown bag, but it's sort of like, I create like a directory for every project I work on, and I found myself typing brown bag, and I was thinking like, what an awful term. It's quaint and awful. No one uses that. Well, very few people use that term nowadays, or maybe more than I think. But like, it's such a brown bag. It's just so funny.
What's the new word? Lightning talk? You're giving a lightning talk?
I don't know. That's why I reverted to brown bag. It's like brown bag's like this encoded phrase that so much.
Well, and like lightning talks to me, they should be well defined. Like, does that mean it's a 10-minute talk? Does it mean it's a 5-minute talk? Because Ignites have a definition. Ignite is 20 slides, 5 minutes. Auto timer, and then to me, a lightning talk was like take off the auto timer and make it.
And a brown bag is like, let's open this up and see what's inside.
Oh, there you go. But or you need you hear the
TED talk. You need to give a TED talk, Coté. Just walk in and be like, I'm giving a TED talk, and then just have all these graphics behind come up like.
Well, but the TED talks have a format too.
I know, but like I could introduce you, Coté, now on stage, and then just boom, TED talk, and just go TED talk style. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. So there was a lot going on at Cisco Live.
There was a lot. Did
you get an overview of intercloud? I always want to know more about intercloud.
I did not attend that part of the live. I mean, I went to sessions on programmable infrastructure. So talked a lot about like programming switches and ACI, the application-centric infrastructure, and a little bit of UCS, and that's kind of the area.
Isn't the agenda of Cisco Live always the following? It's here we are at Cisco and we're doing lots of really cool stuff, and we really hope software-defined networking never takes off. The end.
No,
That's
no.
really,
I mean,
that's really all it is.
I was over in the DevNet zone where we were talking about software-defined infrastructure, and maybe that's why we were on
Right,
the
but
second
but
floor away
again,
from
it's
everything else.
embrace and extend. It's like, no, keep them in the corner, give those people a thing in the corner and pretend like we like them, but please, God, don't ever take off. Please need our routers. Do not give up on our routers.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's my summary. That's like the Sun Microsystems. Please need our Solaris servers, and then you didn't, and it was over.
Well,
ACI is like their SDN stuff, right?
Yeah.
Do I have the right? Yeah.
Okay. ACI and NSX are like, the two gorillas of the SDN industry, and then there's like the Open Daylight stuff that it's open source and nobody really knows what to make of it, and then I don't know what else is going on, but what I've been telling folks, what I was telling people at the booth is like, I go where the customers want us to go, and I'm still waiting for like more people who are actually using it in production. So we're still, it's not as far along as like OpenStack, right? I mean, OpenStack, I can point to a couple dozen customers, but with SDN, it's like, it's still kind of too bleeding edge for a lot of folks.
But not a lot of BGP recipes is what you're saying.
Well, there are.
I know a little bit about
a little bit of OSPF on there, and
gotta update my tables.
Yeah. So I mean, there's awareness of it, and everyone's like, "Yep, that's a good idea."
Yeah.
And then there's like, you back in the day you had the server huggers, and now you've got like the network huggers. They're like, stay away from. You can't automate this. Things could go wrong. You could break things. But it's slowly coming, and so there were definitely a lot of good conversations to be had, and I had meetings and some customer dinners and that kind of stuff, and I got to go to dinner with friend of the show, Chip Holden. So
did you get any good swag?
No.
What were you guys giving out at the
I made two walkarounds in the big massive booth area.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm a little bit swag jaded. I mean, you can't
swagged out.
You can't compare with the blue box. The fool who runs their own cloud. I mean, that's so good. And and I saw on Twitter today that someone is using that as for their dog to let people know when to open the door. So that's
a good
awesome. I mean, that's the best swag ever in my book. But no, I now that I think about it, I did not bring any swag home.
Well, now, it's my understanding that IBM bought Blue Box. So, Brandon, you must have access to boxes of those, right?
That sounds like we should. So I will have to take an action item from the podcast, which is
you need to go write that up on
and go see if I can find see if I can at least get one before they're all gone.
And then was it during Cisco Live that Cisco announced that they acquired Piston?
It was last week. Yeah, the week before.
Yeah, it was like it was another week in OpenStack acquisitions.
Yeah, it was back to back. Like they both announced within like an hour of each other.
Yeah.
Because everyone was like, "Whoa, who got bought first? A Piston. Whoa, Piston got bought by Cisco." And then I was congratulating friends at Piston, and asking around who had what details, and then like, oh, now Blue Box too. So
yeah, it'll be fun to see the update to the 451 OpenStack market PDF. See how this affects things over the next year.
Yeah, well,
that's a thrilling thing to look forward.
Thrilling thing to look forward to. I mean, and then you had the various, hey, look, is it success? Is it failure? How do acquisitions get rated?
Mm-hmm.
And then who's next? All the drama of that. Who's on who's shopping around for more startups?
Yeah, so I always thought Blue Box was an interesting company because they've been around for a while. I think it was like 12 years or something.
Yeah.
They're like a managed hosting company, and kind of like what was the other one? MetaCloud, which didn't Cisco buy that one?
Yep.
I get my purchasers all
Yeah,
mixed.
Cisco's got 5
And
OpenStack products.
really, what are the 5 that they have? They have MetaCloud.
So they bought Piston and they bought
Uh-huh.
MetaCloud.
Yeah.
They have their own Cisco OpenStack.
Okay. Right.
And then they also support Red Hat's OpenStack. And
right.
they partner on that, and they partner on VMware's OpenStack too. So
Wow, that must make for some awkward offsites. What do you do?
Yeah, a friend of mine's a a lead over there, and he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "You want to talk about it?" And he's like, "Let's just go get a beer."
Yeah, that's a lot of OpenStack to deal with. But yeah, so anyways, like MetaCloud, Blue Box, they basically their product was a service, if you will, of like we have a distro of OpenStack effectively, but it's not like we necessarily sell that. It's just if you want to run an OpenStack cloud that we manage, you run that, which seemed like a nice approach.
Yeah.
They are always nice folks. So that's good for them. And it fits pretty nice into IBM's service-driven wheelhouse. So, and I think if I remember the executives who were speaking in the press releases, it's part of the soft layer division. I think, what's his name? Not Cotton, but the guy who heads that up was talking about it. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
There's only like 3 OpenStack companies left now, right, Matt? You must keep track of this.
Well, you got HP and IBM and Cisco.
Well, small startup.
Startups. I'm sure there's a couple. You still got Mirantis. They're not exactly
those guys.
I think they got like 900 people.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah, they're big, and they've taken a lot of VC. You've got a couple smaller ones. Platform 9, is that one?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think they're one. Blanks on names. There's not as many as there used to be. That's for sure.
So this makes me wonder, like, if you're in an OpenStack startup now, like speaking of awkward offsites, like what are you planning out? Like what are you working on?
That's a good question. I mean, because there's also stratoscale. Because really, it's like, how are you going to carve out a market against those sorts of massive companies if you're trying to differentiate on something that everyone collaborates on? And like, what's your secret sauce to it? You got to have some secret sauce. So for stratoscale, they've replaced a lot of the OpenStack backend with a new hypervisor and total a distributed database, and so they're just using it and using the interfaces and APIs. So that's one way. If you don't like the pieces, and then you've got like SwiftStack is still around, and all they do is focus on Swift deployments, and that's probably a pretty good business, right? I mean, they employ probably half the engineers and the people who need that.
And tell me if I'm wrong, but it always struck me that was, if not the main component of OpenStack that you could kind of run independent of the rest of OpenStack.
Right.
And early on, I think that was like what a lot of SwiftStack success was. One was just like making hay out of all the OpenStack build out, but 2 is just like, I just need object storage.
Yeah, and I as far as I know, they don't do an OpenStack distro. They just
I don't think so.
They focus on making Swift standalone, and they'll integrate it into anybody else's OpenStack. Right.
Yeah. I remember SwiftStack came to do some Austin Roadshow, and it was a really well attended thing for like 2 or 3 years ago, or probably 2 years ago.
Well, and that was the kind of my takeaway at the OpenStack Summit in Vancouver is there were like half a dozen new object storage people, or people taking the Swift API and putting it on their products. So you had like CleverSafe. They were doing it, and Hitachi had a product, and the Parallels guys like split their company in 2, and they were doing some object storage. And
those guys, Gelastic.
I think the new
I
company's
think they
called.
partnered with them, right?
Yeah.
Anyways,
But
this
yeah,
this
they were
is
just objects.
Coté's bad memory. Being recorded. You know that. Speaking of bad memories, or my bad memory. Remember, we used to have a podcast, Brandon, called the Austin Tech Scene.
I do remember it fondly.
I
It's still
I
available on iTunes, I think.
I had a very If you want to catch up with what's happening in the Austin Tech Scene 5 years ago, you should subscribe.
Yep.
Our Back to the Future. Anyways, I had a very Austin Tech Scene moment the other day. I went down to the WeWork co-working space. Have you guys heard of this place?
No, what is this?
Man, it is like, they shouldn't even call it co-working, because co-working is just like, like it's one step above hanging out at a coffee shop. But there's like, you go to like the American Commerce Building at 600 Congress, and they've got like a receptionist desk, and it smells like fresh wood. It like looks, aside from the fact that not everything's free, it's nicer than the Pivotal offices over on Howard Street, which are like, pretty fancy and impressive. But it's like a big co-working space that you like pay, and you can rent offices. There's a bunch, and it's full of people. Like there's all these people in Austin working on programming stuff.
All right, well, good. Did you like walk around?
Were you
ask
now-
about Pivotal? Is this?
I walked around
This
a little.
is separate from the Austin.
The Capital Factory?
Yeah, Capital Factory. This is a separate entity.
Yeah, well, in fact, when I was leaving, I was there to meet with some people who are interested in Pivotal, and I went to grab like an iced tea from a fridge, and they're like, "Oh, you have to pay for that." And so I went over to a thing to pay for. It's like it's not like Capital Factory where it's free.
Oh, okay.
But whatever. I declined to take the iced tea. I didn't want to make him pay for an iced tea, but they did have some beer on tap there. That was pretty nice. But it's like
free beer.
It's very impressive. There's like stuff going on down there in the Austin Tech Scene.
Yeah, whenever I was telling people I was from Austin, they got all excited. Apparently, this is the place to be.
And they're going to take over the fifth. They're on the 14th floor, and they're taking over the 15th floor. Demand is so high.
Man.
Well, it sounds like what they need is a live taping of our podcast at some point. That's all for Divine Tech. So we should go down there and have I'm sure they will all be in line for seats, and we should do a live show.
That's a good idea. I'm going to be on some SolarWinds live taping thing next week. Aren't you going to that, Matt Ray?
I am indeed.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll have some iced tea for us.
They sent out an email, and they were like, "Don't wear white and wear colors that complement your skin. And ladies, go light on the makeup." And I was thinking like, wow, how much am I getting paid for this again? Nothing.
You're like, I'm going to wear white and my kabuki.
You do a good job, though. I bet you Renee. I bet you Renee's doing the video. She's actually pretty good on the video stuff.
Oh yeah, no, you can
make
tell
it look really good.
You can tell they're pros at it. I mean, part of why I wanted to go there, one, because it'll be fun, and it was on the topic of DevOps. But yeah, I mean, I'm always impressed with their outbound stuff. It's good stuff. But it'll be fun to be on, see what's on that panel. Did they send you some list of things you're supposed to reply to, Matt Ray?
Oh yeah. I gave them a little bit of feedback about
Okay, good.
A couple of other suggested topics, and maybe we don't want to talk the Puppet Ansible chef because I might have a bias, or maybe that's what they want. They want conflict.
You guys just do continuous delivery now, right? Aren't you? You rise
pretty
above
much.
that.
Yeah, I think config management's a solved problem, really. And moving on to the
Most
next.
importantly, guys,
nodes
if you're
are not
on
a
a SolarWinds podcast, my only suggestion, if you want to be invited back, just stress that you invite the users to download SolarWinds products, and they'll like you. So just work that into your natural delivery as often as you can.
They're the ones who bought Librado and pinged them, or is that
Right.
vice
That's
versa?
correct.
Okay, good.
Right, got it.
All right.
Well,
And make sure you know which products they bought, Matt Ray, before you go over that.
I'm just checking. Spiceworks is right by my house, so
You should be like, "Oh man, this new relic thing is great."
Yeah. No, I won't make that mistake.
Man, I love
I'm
this
a
app D.
professional.
I need more app D.
Can you
Data
tell?
doll.
Look, no makeup, not wearing a white shirt. I am ready.
Boom. Lower third pro. Well, speaking of lower third pros, why don't we roll into our recommendations for this week? I think I'm going to title this "The Most Thrilling Episode of Software Defined Talk You Will Ever Hear," because it's been a big week. Lots going on, lots to talk about and hash out. I'm just back from vacation, which means I'm super enthused about the tech world. But, Why don't we start with you, Brandon? What's your recommendation for this week?
Well, I guess on the topic of SolarWinds owns a company called Dameware, and I once had a hand in making a Dameware video. It's a trailer, a movie trailer style thing. So I'm going to recommend everyone check out my movie trailer. That'll be my recommendation number one.
Now, this is Gameware, like game, G-A-M-E?
Like D, like a D.
Oh, Dame.
Dog. So it's a free tool you can get from SolarWinds that I'm sure they will appreciate if you download. But if nothing else, watch my handiwork in the video. And
I know this guy Johnny, who's always interested in stuff like that.
Johnny should check it out because I think it's a fun video. And then on the topic of white papers, I actually am listening because again, whenever I mention a book, it means I'm listening to it, not reading it. But listening to The Age of Cryptocurrency because I love the blockchain and back to our topic of white papers. Like these guys are just some journalists who wrote a book about all the things that are happening around Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. So if you just want to know what's up, kind of like what's happening, and you want a bunch of journalists to do all the work for you, I recommend listening to that book. It's got a lot of interesting insights about the good, the bad, the craziness of Bitcoin and the blockchain. So check it out.
Well, that's a good one. How about you, Matt?
Well, when I was at Cisco Live, I did get to check out the latest Oculus Rift headset. I didn't get the motion sickness I got the last time I tried it on, so that was a thumbs up. Still getting there, or maybe whatever they were demoing needed work, but it was cool. I'm looking forward to. I think Facebook has started showing the version they're going to be releasing early next year. So go check out an Oculus Rift if you get a chance. And then the pic I posted in the show notes was there's video from the DARPA challenge of the humanoid robots trying to go through the obstacle course. It's awesome. I mean, I've seen people saying, it's hilarious. No, it's super hilarious. Just robots falling over because they're trying. You could tell they're trying, and of course, in 3 or 4 years they're going to be, slaughtering us. But it was cool to just, watch them like, I'm going to open this door. I got it. I'm turning this knob. How come it's not resisting? There I go. It's awesome.
It is pretty hilarious. It reminds me of like a supercut I used to see every now and then of robot failures, like the trash dumpster thing, like throwing trash over it, or there's that one of the robot trying to like open a door and it ends up like breaking the doorknob and breaking the door down. But I was looking through these robots and we're talking about funny robot videos. Yeah, but. What I liked about them is like it looks like they're being so careful, and then they just suddenly biff.
They're like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Oh no, failure!" Ah!
Well, so I as you guys mentioned last week, I was on vacation for a while. I was in Spain for a couple of weeks. I was working a little while doing a presentation there. It's fun to present to people in Spain. They're great, and my recommendation is we rented apartments with the Airbnb, which is not really a recommendation, but that means that we could cook breakfast for ourselves every morning. And the eggs in Spain are like real eggs. Like it makes you realize if you've been eating American eggs all your life, someone's been just like peeing in these shells and calling them eggs. Because these Spanish eggs have like this huge yellow glob of yolk in the middle, and they're substantial and delicious. And it really is like, if you've ever had like yard eggs, like you just go to the grocery store and that's what you buy. You go to a little crappy convenience store, which they confusingly call a supermarket, but it's actually anything but a supermarket. and that's the eggs you get. It's amazing. I love those eggs.
Spanish eggs.
Yeah, and also here's a tip: if you try to bring pork products into America, you will only be feeding the U.S. Border Patrol people.
Oh no!
Because they will take your pork products.
Mm.
I didn't like get a big pork leg or anything. I just had some jerky, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You can't bring pork from anywhere."
They're like, "You can't bring this tasty pork products."
Exactly. I like to think that they are so like dedicated and fanatical about their jobs that they take it to a big incinerator and just like burn it because they're like, well, if the paperwork says that we can't have it, it must be dangerous. But you know, they just must have a delightful pork eating festival every week. And on that note, as always, we're Software Defined Talk, available at softwaredefinedtalk.com. You can find us on iTunes and Overcast and your better and worse places where you might subscribe to a podcast. It's always nice to hear your comments about how you like the show or don't like it, or Twitters or whatever. But with that, we'll see what happens next week, and we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.